What's up guys, and thank you for watching this video. It's cool to see you guys are interested in the basics of Resolve because that, probably means you're thinking about switching. Anyway, in this video we're going to take a look at how to import your footage, how to edit your footage using shortcuts and, make it time efficient and do it as fast as possible because we don't want to waste time on editing. We're also going to take a look at how to color your footage and then specifically how to convert your footage from log to Rec 709 by using the color space transform tool, but also doing it manually by, adjusting different parameters. And then of course, exporting. What kind of settings I use to get the best results and so forth. So it's going to be a long video, so there's timestamps in the description below so you can hop back and forth to different parts. So yeah, enjoy, sit back, relax, and definitely let me know what you think in the comment section below. Oh, maybe it's nice to grab a pen and paper to make some notes. Cool, enjoy. So first off, when you open up Davinci, you're sort of escorted into this screen. It's the project manager. Yeah, so right click on the gray surface to create a new project or simply click this button over here. Now, let's call it a whatever. And you're taken into the new project. So, all right, so in the media tab, you can easily just drag and drop your footage into the media pool. There are some drawbacks though. If you, for example, drag this entire folder, this is 480 gigs worth of footage, into this part of the media pool, it will extract all the clips and put all the clips in one bin. So it's going to be one hell of a mess. If you're somewhat structured like I am, and you make folders on your SSD or on your backup drives, it's better to drag the entire folder into your master area. That way it will load in all the footage, but it will, maintain the file structure that you already built up for it. So that's pretty cool. As you can see, all the bins are still there, which is nice because now it's a lot more, it's a lot clearer, Cool. All right, so this is basically everything that I do in the media tab. And so I go straight over to the edit page. The cut page is in between, and it's sort of designed to create fast and easy cuts, and you can export it really quickly and show it to a client. But I personally prefer to use the edit page because I'm so familiar with all its shortcuts and features. So let's jump straight over to the edit page. All right, inside the edit page, you'll notice that you have the media pool up here. You have an effects library, an edit index, and your sound library. We're going to talk about these a little later. First off, the only thing that we need to worry about is the media pool. All right, so right now there's no timeline created. So what I'm going to do is create a new bin and call this timelines. Instead of dragging a clip onto the timeline and let Davinci create a timeline for you, I'm going to create it manually because otherwise it will create a timeline and it drops it in the video, in the file where the video comes from, and it's going to be a big mess. So just, create a new bin, call it timelines, right click inside the bin, create timeline, and then call it tutorial video. All right, so now we've created a timeline, very simple. We can check the settings. All right, so this is UHD, 24 frames a second. That's good because all the footage here is shot in 24 frames a second. So that's what we want. Now let's go over to day one, video, say Blackmagic Pocket, and then just drag some clips in there. This is shot in the morning. It was really early, but it was a magnificent morning. It looked, blah, blah, blah. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about are the keyboard shortcuts. But before we do that, I left a link in the description below, and it's the first link. You can click on it and you can download my keyboard shortcuts. These are the keyboard shortcuts that are as close to Premiere as possible because I come from Premiere. I've used Premiere for over 13 years, but I eventually made the decision to swap entirely to Davinci, and that is mainly because of its color page and Fairlight page. So yeah, go to the description below, go to my Cell5 page and download the keyboard shortcuts for free. And once you've done that, go over to Davinci Resolve up here, keyboard customization, and then click on the three dots over here and then import preset. and then you'll find this Davinci Resolve _VES, and you just navigate to it and you click on it and you're good to go. And all the keyboard shortcuts that I'm about to talk about are in that file, so you'll be able to follow along. All right, so the first things that I think are very valuable are, for example, if you're cutting, and you're just, going crazy and blah, blah, blah. You have so many clips over here and you want to drag them all so they align perfectly. Well, you can do that. Of course, you can sort of drag them one by one, but that takes ages. So what I do is I press A, and then every clip behind the playhead is selected. Literally every clip. So you can count on that. So press A and then drag it over. Yeah, so that's a very, very good tool to have. Another thing that I use literally every time is the W and E tool, the ripple deletes. So I press A to select the clip, and I can, you can of course click on it, but I prefer to press the A. And then, I navigate to the point where I want to ripple delete it, press W, and it deletes from the left to the right. Yeah, same goes for the right to the left. So, I want the footage to stop here. So I press the E, and now it's ripple delete from the right to the left. So that's a very quick and easy way to, work on clips that are in the timeline already. All right, cool. So the next thing that you can do to trim your clips further is to use the C tool. Yeah, so C is basically the same as in Premiere. It's the cut tool. So press A to select everything and then cut by clicking on the C. And then you can either backspace to delete the entire clip, or what you can do is select the clip and shift backspace to ripple delete it. So all the clips behind the playhead or behind that clip that you want to delete are sort of merged together. So you don't have to, to do it manually like this. Oh. Oops, I just had dinner, so. All right, so that's that. It's pretty easy and it's a nice and fast way to navigate through your clips and to really work, that. All right, so next thing I want to show you is the T, and the T is your trim tool. Davinci Resolve has a very powerful trim tool. It's a lot better than Premiere Pro in my opinion, because once you click and drag the clip, you can see the beginning and the end in real time. And on your viewfinder or on your screen, you can see where the clip starts and where the clip ends. So it's a very easy and fast thing to check, and you don't have to get your clip over here, drag it out, and then start navigating, and then E or W, and then, that's just such a time waste. So to be able to press T and just drag it, go and press V to go back to your selection tool is a very nice addition. So that's basically everything you need to know in order to trim. So another thing that I usually do is go into my media pool, and then for example, I want to use this clip. You can also do it this way. Oh, this is a nice one as well. Look at the fog over the water. All right, so what you can do is use the I and O tool. So, for example, I want to use this part right when he goes up to his eye. Press I, and then until here. Press O. Then I can drag and drop it into the timeline. And if I just, press anywhere on the field of, on the video itself, it will drag the audio and video together. But I can also just drag the video or just drag the audio. Depends on what you want and what you need. So that is another way to navigate through clips, and you can do it pretty fast. That rack focus. That's how you can do it. Also, there's just some different ways to do it. So there we go. Now we've got some clips selected. Looks good. And let's say we want to go start color grading. So what you can do first in order to make sure that your clips are ready to be color graded is you highlight everything and you go to your inspector. inside the inspector, you can, either manually zoom in, but that's pretty time consuming. What you can also do is retime and scale, and go to scaling and click on fill. This will fill up the frame, and because we highlighted every clip, all the clips are scaled to or filled to the image size of the timeline. Because I shoot my videos in 4096 by 2160, so it's DCI, 4K DCI. I've had these little bars up top because the aspect ratio is a little different. It's not 16:9, but I think it's 17:9. A quick thing that I want to add before we start color grading is the retime controls, and the retime controls that are built into the keyboard shortcuts. So if you, for example, just want to speed up this clip, the only thing you'll have to do is press R. This will bring up a box that you can just adjust the speed of the clip itself. Yeah, so let's say we want to speed it up quite fast. You can do it like that. And, it's sped up. It's pretty simple. Command Z to return it. But if you, for example, want to make some sort of a speed ramp out of it, you can do it as well. So what you do then is Command R. Highlight the clip first, Command R. Zoom in a little bit by pressing plus or minus. And then navigate to the point where you want to add a keyframe or speed point. Click on the drop-down menu and then add speed point. And then you can adjust the speed of these two, parts of the clip. So if you want to adjust this part, you can either go here on the drop-down menu and change speed like that, or you can drag the top dial and drag it into up the percentage. Yeah. If you want to up the percentage on the other half of the clip, you have to, you can't really drag it here because you will just trim it. You have to go to that black line and start dragging it up here. All right, that will create the same effect. All right, so let's say this is exactly what we want, but we want to adjust the place where where it starts to slow down again. So we click on the bottom part of that playhead, and then we drag it over. And you see that all the changes are happening in real time. All right, so until this place. Cool. Now, let's see how that looks. So, pretty cool. But it can be done even nicer. So what you can do now is press Alt. So Option, Command R. Oh, highlight a clip again. So now you've got your curves. So if you don't see this retime frame box pop up, you have to zoom in a little bit more. Click on the arrow and then retime speed instead of retime frame. All right. Then click on the 90-degree angle here and then zoom out a little bit. Like that. Click on the white dot and then change it from this parameter to this parameter. And now you see that you have a curve that you can adjust. So that's pretty cool because now you can make a proper speed ramp that will look smooth as butter. Yeah. All right. So if you want to undo this whole thing, or not undo, but get rid of all these screens, just press the same buttons again and you're back to where you started. But the effects are still there. So that's one way to work with speed ramps in DaVinci Resolve. You can also do this by manually right-clicking on the footage and then go to, let's say, here. Retime controls and retime curve, but I feel like that's a little bit, too much work, to have to click, search, and blah, blah, blah. It's nice to have your fingers on your keyboard and pop, 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 pop. All right, good. So next on the, the edit pipeline, you have the Fusion tab, but I'm not going to talk about the Fusion tab because that's way more advanced. So we're going to go over to the color tab. All right, so I'm going to try to keep this as short as I can because there's a lot to talk about in the color tab because it's so advanced and there's so much to talk about. The first thing that I want to say is whenever you work in DaVinci Resolve, and I probably should have said this earlier, and you have a second screen, as you can see here, you can use that screen as a clean output. All right, so what you do is you go to Workspace, Primary Displays, is, you know, the display that shows all the features of DaVinci Resolve, but video clean feed is the thing that shows the clean feed of the video. So that's my BenQ LCD monitor. Bam. There you go. Looks pretty cool. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about is I want to go over these buttons real quick. I'm gonna talk about it very, very short, so you have a basic understanding of what these buttons do. So the first one is the camera raw option. Yeah, so all this footage is shot in Blackmagic RAW. That's why I have this amount of control over these clips. But let's say that I go into my media pool, then drone pro, drop it in here. Let's say I've got, you know, my drone footage. If I click on it, you see that there's no option for me to change these parameters because it's not shot in RAW. All right, so this is your RAW editor, and you can basically change all the parameters inside the camera, sort of, without losing detail. So it's a non-destructive way of changing your camera's settings inside your editing program, which is amazing. Right, the next one is your color match device. So that means if you have a color card, for example, the X-Rite Passport Video, which is the smallest one, you can hold it next to your face, and that way you can match the colors exactly how they are supposed to look like. So that's a very good thing for interviews and all that kind of stuff, because it will make sure that the skin tones look as best as they can. So that's how you use this one, but I'll probably make a new video about it and go into detail about it. Next one is the color wheels. This is basically the place where all the magic happens, where you create your grades and do, you know, all your adjustments, color adjustments and stuff like that. Next one is the RGB mixer. I wouldn't touch it for now because it's pretty difficult. It's a little bit more advanced, but essentially you can, you know, really take control over each sort of level or each color inside the frame. So yeah, but whatever. Don't talk about it too much now because it's pretty much too much for this tutorial. The next one is basically your motion effects, and this contains your temporal noise reduction. So if you come from Premiere Pro, you're probably aware of Neat Video. That is a tool that creates basically the same thing. So it's a noise reductor. I'm not sure if that's correct, but so what I do usually is my frames I set to 3, then this goes to better, and this goes to in between 8 and 12. Yeah, it depends on how much noise there is in the image. This image is pretty clean because it was shot on 100 ISO, and you know it was lit with all the light out there, so there's not too much noise in there. But if you shoot on a higher ISO, you know, you're introducing more noise into the image. So that's what you want to do. But later in this video, I'm going to talk about the note structure and when to use your noise reduction. Next one is your curves. This is pretty similar to Premiere Pro, I guess, because all these settings are there as well. So this should be familiar to you. Next one is the qualifier. This is especially useful if you work with skin tones. Now, this is not the perfect example because, you know, Frank's face is pretty underexposed. But if you click on Frank's face, for example, or somebody's skin, and you press Shift H, you see only the parts that are selected. So now, of course, this image is shot in log, and it's still in log, so the qualifier won't work as good because it works better in a Rec 709 color space. But still, you know, I'm gonna go into detail about it later. But you can, with this tool, you can, you know, very precisely pick one color of the image and work with that color. All right, so the next one is a power window. So let's say I want to light up Frank's face a little bit. Okay, so now I pressed on the circle power window and this whole thing popped up because my highlights were still on. Yeah, so Shift H. So let's say I want to light up Frank's face a little bit, feather it out so it doesn't look that bad. So now I can go into my color wheels, and then in the offset I can boost it, you know, his face. Again, I ate dinner, sorry, burpee. Woo. All right, so it looks ridiculous, but you get the point. Yeah, so you can sort of create a a mask, let's say. Yeah, so power windows are basically masks. All right, so next we've got our sharpening. I would say never go below 0.47. I think this is the sweet spot, otherwise you'll get too noticeable. The next one is the note key. This key output gain knob is basically your opacity. So I would say if I put a lot on there, so let's say I put my D-Log M, let's say I put my DJI LUT on here, yeah? So I put a max LUT, bam! It's a bit much. Put the minimum on there. Oh no, max, okay. Let's put this one on there, but I think it's a bit too much. Then I can drag down this knob to, you know, add in a little bit of that look. And if I press Command D, I'll take it off. That looks pretty nice. This could be the look, you know. Damn. Quite funny that the DJI seasonal pack works on Blackmagic footage. Interesting. Anyway, oh yeah, if you want to buy it, there's a link in the description. Support your boy. Anyway, let's see how it looks over here. Dang, bro. All right, so that's basically all the knobs that you need to know of. All right, so now we're gonna go over into our note structure. There's two ways you can structure your note tree. There is the way that you actually, you know, like transform your footage from log to Rec 709 by yourself, and also a way that you use tools built into Davinci Resolve. That's the one that I use mostly. Let's do the first one by hand. So there's 4 things that you want to keep in mind whenever you're transitioning or whenever you're transforming a clip from log to Rec 709. The first one is white balance. Yeah, so let's call this white balance. The next, oh, and if you want to add a new node, it's Command or Alt S. Yeah, Alt S. The next one is contrast. Let's call it con. Yeah, all right, Alt S. This one is saturation. Alt S. And this one is luminance. All right, so quickly some keyboard shortcuts again about these nodes. For example, you know, add some contrast here. Let's do it drastically. Let's say I want to see everything without this node on. I press Command D, yeah, so that deselects this node. Let's say I want to check my before and after with all the nodes off. I press Alt D. Yeah. Cool. All right. So let's say I want to create a node. Well, I already told you guys it's Alt S. But let's say I want to create a node before the node we selected. You press Shift S. Yeah. There you go. If you want to clean up your nodes, right click and clean up the node graph. We'll do a great job. All right, so let's create our let's create our look here, or not our look, but our correction. So the first thing I'll do is I try to white balance my shot. So I go over to the second page of my color wheels here, and I start to play around with the temperature slider. And the thing that you have to keep in mind is that you always have to have your waveforms open. Waveforms or histogram. I prefer the waveforms because you can actually see what happens with the colors because they're colliding. You know, they're stacking on top of another. All right, so go to your temperature slider and just play around with it and see what happens. So the thing that I'm looking for now is when the colors are sort of aligning. Yeah, so this shot was basically already color map, already sort of white balanced. Yeah, so you can see that this line is basically already stacked. Yeah, so this is the yellow, the green, the red, the green, the blue, and if I pull it back down, it becomes white, and that is what you want. So now, you know, my shot, it's pretty much white balanced. That's good. So now I am adding some contrast. So go over to the first page, add contrast, not too much, but you know, a little subtle. Cool, looks good. Next, go over to saturation, and there's 2 ways to do this. The first one is to use the slider inside the color wheels. Yeah, so to boost it up, you know, boost it until you like what you're seeing. right about 70, I guess. That would be nice. You know, Command D again to undo it, or like deselect it to see the before and afters. All right. That's one way. Or you can go over to your RGB mixer and lift up the blue in the blue output, the green in the green output, and the red in the red output. That will create a saturated image as well. But I feel like on my camera, it's a little bit too intense. So I'll just go with the previous one I showed you. All right, sweet. Now we're gonna try to level the image out. Yeah, so you can see on the scopes, yeah, so on the waveform that the blacks are lifted a little bit. So I'm gonna, in my primary wheels, on the color wheels, I'm gonna drag down the lift, which stands for shadows. Yeah, so you can see what it does. Yeah, so I'm gonna drag it down just a little bit in between 128 and 0. Yeah, so it's okay that this line is touching 0 because that's his t-shirt, and that's fine for now. Then the midtones are basically his skin tones, usually the skin tones. So drag it up. As you can see, his skin tones are getting a little bit more noticeable. And the gain is usually the highlights. All right, so if we deselect it, you can see that it made pretty significant change. Nice. All right, so this is basically how you transform your footage from log to Rec 709. You just have to play with these 4 parameters, yeah? So white balance, contrast, saturation, luminance. All right, so this is one way to do it, okay? So let's copy this clip. Copy it, and then paste it. All right, so let's undo all these nodes in this clip. You can do that by right-click and then reset all grades and nodes here. Or if you want to do the entire timeline, you can select all the clips and do the same, and then it will delete all the nodes from all the clips. So one thing that I really like about Resolve is its intuitive effects. Yeah, so if you go over to your Open Effects tab here, click on Color Space Transform, drag it onto your first node, you can non-destructively go from log to Rec 709 and back from Rec 709 to log if you want to run your your footage through a film print emulation, for example. Non-destructively, constantly. Doesn't matter how many times you do it, it will not destruct your image. And the great thing is there are so many input gammas and input color spaces in this tool that you can basically match all the cameras you're using. For example, a Sony a7 III or a Blackmagic Pocket 4K or your Panasonic S1. You can all match it to output the same color. So what we do now is we start with our input color space. Well, this was shot on a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. As you can see here, our input color gamma is the Pocket 4K. Then our output will be Rec 709, Rec 709. Okay, so now you can see that, there are some parts of the image are clipping. There's 2 ways to fix it. First, in the color space transform tool, you can do a tone mapping and you can select luminance mapping. That will sort of bring down the highlights and it will conserve all the data. What you can also do is don't use this one. Don't use luminance mapping, but go over to your color wheels, go over to your contrast slider, then put your pivot on 0 and then drag down the contrast slider. Yeah, so now you see that all the data is still in there. So that's the cool thing about the color space transform, because all the data is still available to you. If you would put in a LUT and something would be clipping, you would be losing all that data. So that's why the color space transform tool is so amazing. All right. Well, that's that. So now I'm gonna just show you guys a very simple way of a node structure and walk you through it. All right. So let's undo this one and put luminance mapping on there. Copy this one over. Then I go to my power grades, but this is for another video, tutorial grade, and then bam. All right. So let's say this is our look. Yeah. So we created this look and we think it's amazing and it looks perfect. Let's see if that works. That works. Yeah, cool. All right. So this is the look that we are after. Yeah. So I'm gonna walk you through all these nodes and show you exactly what is what. Yeah, so the first one is your noise reduction. Why would you want your noise reduction in the beginning of your note tree? Well, it's pretty... sorry. I ate Indian curry, so my nose is like... Wah. Anyway. So why would you want your noise reduction in the beginning? Well, it's pretty simple because it reduces the noise of your image. So everything that comes after this node is a clean output. And that's what you want, because all the nodes after this one, you want to be affected a clean image. So that's why you put this one in the first place. Then your color space transform node comes next, because of course before this node, your footage is still in log, and you want to transform it into Rec 709 because that's an easier color space to work in. All right. Next, you've got your contrast. Yeah. So this is, depending on your liking, you can increase it a little bit. So this is kind of nice because the sun comes from behind, so it creates a nice halo effect around Frank. So a little bit more contrast is pretty nice. I highly recommend always using Command D to deselect the clip you're just worked on, so you can see what kind of changes you've made to the clip. All right. Next is, let's see what I changed here. This is my white balance. Yeah, so if I deselect it, you can see that the clip was pretty yellowish. Now, I have to be honest, it was this yellow because the sun just came up. So I'm actually gonna decrease this slightly because the sun just came up and it created a beautiful yellow look on the water. So that's what it truly is. And that's the thing with color grading. You can work towards a perfect white balance, but sometimes the scene wasn't white balanced at all. It was using a lot of yellow lighting, or like, you know what I mean. So you have to feel what the shot was shot at and then work from there. All right. So the next one this is pretty technical, so I'm sorry if you don't follow along, but this is if you press Shift H, this is a qualifier node. So here I qualified his skin tones. I could have done a better job by creating a power window, with these tools around Frank. So this was not sort of qualified with it, but I don't really mind. Then I created a layer node. Yeah, so I created a normal node. This is where my grade is on, as you can see. Yeah, so it's a little bluish. And I created a layer node, and then I used an alpha channel to connect it to the layer node. So this node is actually affected by everything this node does. So the qualifier is sort of affecting this node as well. And now, because I want the skin tones to pop a little bit or to have a different color, I can work on this node in particular in order to create a different look for his skin tones. Because, for example, I want to, create his, make his skin a little bit more red. I can do that. It doesn't do a lot, but you can see the difference with the node and without the node. All right. So the best thing is to do this way, because if you wouldn't use this one and you just put the qualifier on this node, it would affect the qualification of the skin tones, because you were changing the skin tones as well. So that's why I always use a node and then use an alpha mask or to transfer the qualifier to the layer node. Man, it's super complicated. Sorry, I'm gonna go into more details in a different video. So then, you have your layer mixer, mixes all these things together, and then you go over to your next node. This node is a grade fix. That's how I would call it. So without it, it looks like this. With it, it looks like this. So it's basically a little bit like a boost in the highlights. I didn't do anything here. And then I just pulled a little bit. What did I do? I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure. I think I'll probably use the tint slider. No, I don't know. I can't find what I did. Anyway, let's do this again. I think I just used the offset a little bit to create a little bit of a green tint, and then to counterbalance it, I'll put it in the... That's quite good. All right. So this is basically one of the last, like the luminance versus saturation. And that is basically to make sure that your blacks are black. Yeah. So if you pull down this part, all the everything behind this sort of line would be black. So if I pull this one over to here, you see that the whole image get desaturated a lot. So it's nice because I, pushed some blues into the shadows. This will make sure that the shadows, like the true shadows, remain black. Right. The next one is your sharpening, and this one is your grain. So I used the 35mm 400T, and that's basically, it looks like this. Very fine, beautiful grain. So yeah, that's basically it. And you could have done it without these two. Depends. It all depends on your liking. And if you're satisfied with this look, go for it. Yeah. All right. So that's basically your note tree and how you would sort of build it up. And if you would not use your color space transform tool and you would do it by hand, you would have your white balance, your contrast, your saturation, your luminance before all these other nodes. This is as far as I go on this page. Yeah. So you've got the basics. You get the basic understanding of the layout of the color page. So now we're gonna go over to the Fairlight page and talk about what I do in the Fairlight page, and then we'll go over to export. So let's do it. On the Fairlight page, the first thing you'll see is a screen similar to this. What I always do is I drag down this, the first layer, so I get a feel of what the waveforms look like. Now, there's not too much audio captured here, but as you can see, there's some audio here. So we'll work with this. Oh, that's my voice. All right, so what I always do, let's say I've got a dialogue from person A. I'll put the entire dialogue of person A on audio 1. If I have another dialogue by person B, I'll put it on timeline or on layer 2. Yeah, because I am affecting these layers. Yeah, so this, if you go to the mixer, A1 resembles audio 1. So what I always do first is I play around with the EQ. Yeah, so EQ is basically, it's a necessity in order to create a nice sounding vocal. Yeah, so just play around with it because it's so different for every voice. You can't really put a pin to it what you need to do in order for your audio to sound amazing. So you have to play around with the settings a little bit. So let's say you found out what sounds good for you. Then the next thing I'll do is I'll put some compressor on it. A compressor, basically what the word says, it compresses the audio. So it raises the lower sounds and it sort of compresses the higher sounds. So it won't go out of the spectrum. Yeah, so it's basically what the color space transform tool does with color. It sort of stretches the color out, to create a new, to get your footage from log to Rec 709, but it sort of holds it back into the boundaries. Yeah, so what the luminance mapping tool was doing, it sort of creates a nice package. Same goes for the compressor. If you put a compressor on and you'll raise up the makeup, you'll hear the difference. And then if I take it off, so the thing with sound is that sound is very subtle. So you won't hear a lot of difference when you play with sound. That's why you need very good headphones when you play with sound or when you do sound designing, because sound can make or break your video. I feel like sound is so important to tell the story. But if for example, if you put in a whoosh and that whoosh is too loud, I'll get taken out of the story immediately. So you really have to watch out for that. So use good headphones. So yeah, that's basically what I do for dialogue. And for sound designing, it's a whole different video, and I'm not going to go into detail about it. But yeah, this is how you can work with sound. So you just make sure that you play around with the EQ, listen to it over and over again until you're happy and satisfied. All right, next, deliver page. This is basically where you export your footage. for a entire timeline situation like this, so let's say this is our entire video and we want to entirely render it out and, you know, put it on YouTube, I'll never use the pre-made like things here. I just use custom. So what I do here is test render, and then I'll make, you know, I'll choose a location. For now, I'll just put it on the desktop. I want to render this in MP4 because it's going on YouTube. I'm going to render it out as H.264 as my codec. It's going to be a UHD file. It's shot at 24 frames a second, so I'll export it as 20. Blah, blah, blah. I will export it as 24 frames a second. That was a difficult sentence to say. Then I restrict my how does it called? Like my kbps. I'm not sure what it called. Megabytes per second, whatever, to 100,000. Yeah. So what I usually do is bitrate. Jesus. Oh, sorry. My bitrate. Yeah. So my bitrate is usually for 4K is 100,000 kbps, and for 1080p or HD, it's usually 45,000 or 50,000 kbps. Yeah, so that's what I use. And then all these other settings are set to normal. If you want to export your subtitles you've created, make sure you check the box and then go over to audio. This is usually just, you know, I'll leave it as is because it's compressed like so badly on YouTube anyways. So, yeah, well, this is actually it. So now you just press render and you're good to go. You can also do, you know, in-out points as well as you know, we've done before when getting clips from the media pool into our timeline. Just play around with it, I would say. So yeah, just add to rendering queue, render it, put it on YouTube, and make some more. I would say. I'm not sure. Whew, that was a lot, man. Gee, 43 minutes. Probably gonna cut it down to I don't know, 35 minutes or so. But yeah, it was a lot of talking. I hope this video makes sense, and I hope you guys learned something from it. If you did, definitely let me know. If you have questions, also let me know, because I'm passionate about this thing. You know, I'm passionate about color grading, so I would love to help you guys out. So let me know if you have questions, and yeah, I appreciate it if you made it this far. Subscribe to the channel for more, because there's a lot of videos in the waiting line, in the pipeline. I don't know. So yeah, cool. I'm very, very glad you guys sticked around, and see you next time.